So I have about 10 foods here, I think. So for you, Dr. Baker, if you could tell me, is this food going to get someone better results when it comes to healing? Maybe the weight loss, but let's talk about healing. You can rate them out of 10. There's some carnivore and some people think that are okay on a carnivore diet. How does that sound? Is that okay?
Okay, so 10 is the highest score.
10 is like brilliant for healing on carnivore. I think the first one's going to be a 10, just saying.
Okay, let's see what we got. Yeah,
Ribeye.
ribeye. Yeah, ribeye I would give a 10 for sure.
Okay. Why is it a 10?
Well, because it is, I think red meat is the least likely to be irritative to most people. It is pretty well balanced in a fat to protein ratio. I think that fat becomes incredibly important on a carnivore diet. Um, I think that the without the carbohydrates in there, you need adequate fat. Now, again, the caveats are being if someone has really got a lot of excess body fat, then that may not be where they need to go. But I'm just saying a general person that maybe is a relatively normal weight that might have, say, an autoimmune disease, I think this would be a pretty good place to start.
Okay, 10 out of 10. Oh, what are some budget options if people can't afford ribeye?
Ground beef, mince, steak haché if you're in France. Those things are I think they're great. I think ground beef. The only caveat I would say about ground beef is depending on how you cook it. There is a difference in the way we process rendered fat and whole unprocessed fat. So when we cook fat and we turn it into grease, it's going to be handled a little bit differently in the gut. And for some people, that grease, because it's so concentrated, can kind of overwhelm our absorption capacity, and we end up with diarrhea, loose stools, and things like that. So if I'm cooking burgers, I will usually cook them and maybe just leave them kind of a little pink on the inside so that the fat isn't all completely cooked out of it and consume it that way. So I can still get that whole fat, in there. But ground beef is a great option. I eat it. I would eat it more often, but I have a lot of steaks in my freezer. I will admit I get a lot of ranchers just send me steaks because they know that I'll talk about it and they get some free advertising. And so I've got a lot of steaks, so I'm definitely going to eat them.
You're lucky, lucky thing. I see all these good steaks that you're eating.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm very, very fortunate that I'm in a position where people like to send me steaks, and I'm sure as heck going to eat them. So
Okay, the next one might be a bit interesting. Keen to hear your thoughts. Out of 10, how good is it for healing?
bacon, I would probably put bacon probably 6 to 7, something like that. I would say. I mean, the reason I'd say that is because um, there are people where pork is an irritant. I mean, there are people that just don't tolerate pork as well as a general class. Now, there's plenty of people that tolerate it well. I think the other thing is that bacon in general sometimes it can be combined with some stuff that's problematic for people. Some of the preservatives, depending. There's bacon. But let's say we have salt cured bacon that's doesn't have a bunch of other ingredients in there, so it might bump that up a little bit. Um, and again, it kind of depends on how you cook it because if you cook it like super crispy, then it becomes not very high in fat. If you cook it where it's still got a lot of the fat in there, there's going to be higher fat content. So it's less predictable, I would say. So I think it's some people don't tolerate pork, and then the way it's prepared and then how you cook it's going to make an impact. Whereas a ribeye steak generally is pretty consistent.
Okay, I think people are going to be a bit surprised by that, but it's true. Bacon is great, but not as good as a ribeye. So if we can prioritize ribeye, ground beef, ruminant meat, better than and having the bacon as a side. Next one is good. I love this.
Butter. Yeah, butter I would say is probably also I would give it somewhere in that 6 to 7 range. And I'm just thinking, I'm thinking the lowest is going to be a carnivore. Like if we were putting all foods that exist on Earth, and these numbers would be skewed differently. I'm just thinking about within the category of carnivore, 10 being the ribeye, and 1 being I don't know something, maybe I don't know, maybe milk or something like that. So yeah, bacon. I mean, obviously, it's good. It still can be good. It's the problem with butter and really any um, uh, concentrated processed fat is that it can be very easy to overconsume for some people, and also as a rendered fat, it can cause digestive problems for some people. Also, there are people that just dairy is just not a good idea for them. So I think there's some caveats to that. So, but I mean, if I were to compare it to say, uh, canola oil or sunflower oil as a cooking oil, I'd say clearly it's a better thing. It's full of vitamin. It's got fat soluble vitamins in there. It's bacon, not bacon. Butter is not pure fat. I think it's about by volume, it's about 80% fat. There's some water in there. Um, there are some minerals in butter as well. Whereas tallow is a pure fat. It's like 100% fat. So there's a little different. There's a little bit slight differences between tallow and butter.
So would you like tallow better than butter?
Um, I think from a health standpoint, slightly better. It's still a rendered fat, so the same caveats apply. From a taste standpoint, depending on how you're preparing, I think butter might taste a little better depending on how it's being utilized. So it's kind of there.
100% salted butter, grass-fed salted butter. That's my weakness.
Yeah, no, it tastes really good. Yeah, I did a video a few weeks ago tasting some really different butters, and I thought I'd do that for fun. And uh, there was one that was a French salted butter that had little salt crystals in there. Really good, really nice. So butter, yeah, butter tastes really good. I think it would win on the taste test. Tallow is pretty neutral. It doesn't really have much of a flavor to it.
Okay, this one you did a video on before. It's not carnivore, but people wanna try to add it in.
I did. Okay, avocado. So I would say that one I would give. I wouldn't call it a carnivore food, so I would probably put it somewhere in the maybe 3 to 4 range. Again, relative. And again, I want to just put this in the spectrum of, avocado is a fruit. It's higher in fiber. Um, it does contain some compounds that some people might find irritative. I mean, fiber itself might irritate some people. Some people might find that it leads to other cravings. Some people might find that things like the salicylate content in avocados, I believe, might be problematic for them. So while it's certainly, in the context, it's a ketogenic staple. A lot of people on ketogenic diets like avocado because it's high in fat. And, you know, so I mean, again, if I were talking about, if they were going in the full spectrum, I would have negative numbers. Like a donut would be like a -20 or something like that. So just put that in mind on the scale.
I understand. I thought it's just a fun game so that people can understand how to get better results. As we can see, the ruminant meats are best, and then the bacon and the butter is maybe a size of 6 or a 7. But obviously, the donuts and the pastries and stuff, they're a -100. Let's not have those. But people have questions. They also consume a lot of this, which is probably really good.
Yeah, eggs. I would put eggs, probably an 8. Again, with the caveat being that there are a few people that do have sensitivities to eggs. But yeah, eggs are versatile. They, I think they taste pretty good. I have eggs from time to time, and sometimes I consume a lot of them. I mean, I generally don't eat eggs unless I'm having half a dozen, something like that. It's just, it's not worth the effort for me to get the pan out for 1 or 2 eggs. It's like, I'm going to have quite a few of them. So I eat them. I've eaten them raw. I've eaten them, I cooked. I've had, different, concentrations of egg whites and egg yolks. And in general, people tolerate the yolks better than the whites if there's a problem. I've seen that. There's some concern, particularly consuming like straight up raw egg whites, particularly that can lead to problems with a compound called avidin, which interferes with biotin absorption, so there's potential problems there. And there are a number of people that egg allergies are pretty common in the world. I mean, they're one of the more common allergens. So assuming that's not the case for you, then I would consider it a very high ranked food.
Interesting when people have thyroid issues or autoimmune issues, a protocol which is a part of the AIP diet, but also pertaining to carnivore, is to take out the eggs because, as you said, it's a common allergen. This is quite interesting. The Saladino carnivore diet, which is including.
Honey, yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I would put that below avocado. I think I would put that down about a 2 if I were to say that. I mean, I don't think it's magical. I mean, I get this. It's got some enzymes and different nutrients in there, and it comes from bees, so therefore it's an animal product. I don't consider it carnivore at all, in my view. I think it is. Obviously, it's got quite a bit of sugar in it. I mean, it's got fructose and sucrose and glucose. And, I don't think the fact that it comes from bees or it has some of these other things absolves it of the issues people have with sugar. Now, some people tolerate it fine. I mean, there's some people, obviously, there's a lot of people that eat carbs that aren't sick. And so I think you just have to put in perspective where you're at. I think it could be very easy to turn it into a habit. I think it could be very easy to start over consuming it. I think it could be very easy for it to lead you down a path which you might regret. So I think if you are very disciplined in your utilization, it could be incorporated in a diet. Again, I don't know that everybody needs to be carnivore, but I'm just trying to think, how do we have a healthy diet? And I think you just have to realize that certain people, it's better to leave alone. If you're diabetic, insulin resistant, struggling with glucose metabolism, you have food addictions, you have particular susceptibilities to this may not be the best idea for you.
I would agree. It's very when people hear about honey and the introduction of animal carbohydrates, it's a slippery slope for some people, and you have to identify: are you one of them? I'm not one of them. Suffering with food addiction for 20 years, and carnivore diet actually fixed that for me. Last food is kind of people say yes and no to this. So keen to hear your thoughts.
Liver. I would probably give that probably 5, 6 or something like that. I know a lot of people, they'll point out the fact that it is rich in certain nutrients and so on and so forth. Liver is obviously high in iron. It's got, some level of vitamin C in it. It's quite high in vitamin A. It's got quite a bit of copper in it. I think that, you know, there is this sort of belief, and I think some of the other folks that have kind of they're no longer carnivore. Interestingly, they made these proclamations that it was a superfood and you had to have it in your diet, and if you didn't, your carnivore diet would fail because you need these extra nutrients. I don't think that's really true. I don't think anybody long term. In fact, when I learned about this zero carb diet before it was called carnivore, the people that were advocating that they didn't feel it was necessary. And based on just human experience, the collective experience of, you know, thousands of people doing this for many, many years and even decades were saying this is not necessary. And so and for many people, it just doesn't taste good. There's a lot of people that just literally are repulsed by the taste of liver. I happen to be one of them. I don't really like it. I don't enjoy it. I don't crave it. Now, it might be that there are some people that initially they're so depleted of, maybe they come from a plant-based diet or some other, um, uh, you know, uh, really bad standard American diet where they're just malnourished. And then this higher vitamin availability might appeal to them initially. And so maybe early on it might be beneficial. But the people that are advocating that you consume, pound of liver a week or 100 grams a day or something like that, I don't think there's any real evidence to support that. This is one of those things that making these sort of the nose to tail concept that our hunter gatherers would have done that. That's they sometimes base this on some of these modern indigenous tribes who are literally starving. I mean, they are subsisting in the worst places on earth because they've been ran out of all the good prime spots. They're hunting, typical food that they might have eaten hundreds and hundreds of years ago has been long gone. And so now you have, these Hadza warriors running around Tanzania eating baboons. I mean, that's not what they normally would eat. So now, of course, they're eating every part of that animal because they don't have any food. There's a difference between subsistence and surplus eating. And I would argue that for much of early human existence, we probably ate in a surplus. That is probably why we were able to develop this huge brain that we had. That's why we went from this tiny 300 cc brain that an early hominid had to a 1,500 cc brain that we have now, because we had abundance of energy available to us in the form of animal fat. And so because we had, basically, it's interesting. You read some of the early literature. There's a guy named Bass Edmeades who wrote this great book called Megafauna. And he talks about that believe it or not, one of the most prominent foods that we ate as early hominids was the giant tortoise. Because you think about the giant tortoise, they're very fatty and they're easy to kill if you're a human. They have no natural predators. They don't run away. They can't run away. They just suck into their shell. So what does human do? They come up with a big rock and break the shell. Animal dies. we've got a bountiful feast. And so that persisted for, arguably hundreds of thousands of years as we were developing as a species. And then we got more and more successful at hunting, and we started going up to the bigger megafaunal animals that were full of fat. And, because one of the things they'll talk about is, well, when a wolf takes down an animal, he'll eat its insides. He'll eat the liver and he'll eat the stomach. But really what they're going for, I think, is the fat, because that's where, if you're hunting lean animals, zebras, like a lion taking down a zebra is pretty lean. The only fat they have in their body is internal. It's in their internal organs, in their viscera. So they go for that because they know that's where the fat is. And then because they can't access the bone marrow very well, they can't access the brain cavity because it's too well guarded. They just don't have the ability to do that. They therefore, settle for that fat around the viscera. And it's not because they're necessarily seeking out the organs. I think they're seeking out the fat. So yeah, I think liver is one of those things where if you like it, you really like it, go for it. I mean, I know there's people out there that are really concerned about vitamin A. And I say, if you eat a bunch of liver and you eat a bunch of eggs, you're going to get this vitamin A toxicity. And I'm not sold completely on that idea. I think that I just think that if I had a bunch of ribeye steaks and liver in front of me, I'm going to choose ribeye steaks 99 times, 100 times out of 100. Honestly, I would never pick the liver, and I don't think living 1,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago would have changed that for me. I mean, but we don't know for sure.
To watch the full episode, just click here. And if you'd like to see more clips, make sure that you subscribe.